There is a fire burning in the basement of your soul, and you've spent your whole life pretending it doesn't exist. You feel it sometimes, don't you? That heat rising in your chest when someone crosses a boundary you didn't even know you had. That flash of something dangerous behind your eyes when you've said yes one too many times. That trembling in your hands when you've swallowed your truth to keep the peace. That inexplicable fury that surfaces at 3 in the morning when everyone else is asleep, and you're finally alone with thoughts you've been avoiding all day. You've been taught that your sensitivity is a gift, and perhaps it is. But no one told you about the rage that comes with it. No one warned you that to feel everything means to feel the full spectrum, including the fire you've been trained to fear since childhood. No one prepared you for the moment when all that suppressed anger would demand to be acknowledged, to be felt, to be integrated. The world has given you a script for what an empath should be. It says the empath is endlessly kind, endlessly forgiving, endlessly available. The healer of everyone else's wounds. The one who absorbs the pain so others don't have to carry it. The emotional support system for humanity. The safe place where people can dump their trauma without reciprocity or gratitude. You've tried to be that person. You've worked so hard to embody that ideal. You've tried to be light for everyone, while your own fire dimmed to barely visible embers slowly dying in the darkness. But something is stirring now. Something ancient and primal that refuses to stay buried any longer. Something that remembers a version of you that existed before you learned to make yourself small, convenient, and endlessly palatable to others. Let me tell you what no one else will say. What the spiritual teachers and self-help books conveniently omit. Your anger is not a flaw to be transcended. It is not evidence of spiritual failure or emotional immaturity. It is not proof that you're broken or too much or not enlightened enough. Your rage is a messenger arriving at your door with an urgent telegram from your soul. And it's been knocking with increasing desperation, trying to deliver a message you desperately need to hear before you completely disappear into the needs of others. The message is, this empathy without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. It's a truth that cuts through all the spiritual bypassing and toxic positivity. When you feel deeply without protecting yourself, when you pour endlessly without refilling your own cup, when you become everyone's sanctuary but have none of your own, you are not being compassionate. You are not being evolved or spiritual or kind. You are participating in your own erasure. You are being complicit in your own slow disappearance from your own life. There is a psychological truth that cuts through all pretense. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. This is the price of awakening that no one advertises. And for the empath, that pain often arrives dressed as rage. The accumulated energy of every boundary violation, every swallowed truth, every moment you chose false harmony over honest expression, every time you betrayed your own needs to keep someone else comfortable. What if I told you that the fire you've been denying isn't trying to destroy you? What if it's actually trying to save you? What if your rage is your soul's immune system finally activating after years of tolerating infections, of disrespect, exploitation, and emotional manipulation? In the next 50 minutes, you will meet the part of yourself you were taught to fear and exile. The part that has teeth and claws. The part that refuses and resists. The part that says no without apology or explanation. The part that burns with a sacred fury at all the ways you've abandoned yourself in the name of keeping others comfortable, of maintaining peace at any cost, of being good enough to deserve love. This is not a comfortable journey. Transformation never is. But it is a necessary one. Because the alternative, continuing to live half alive, dimmed, exhausted, carrying everyone else's burdens while neglecting your own soul, that is not peace. That is a slow death. That is spiritual suicide by 1,000 small accommodations. You deserve better than that. And somewhere deep inside, beneath all the conditioning and the people-pleasing and the fear of being too much or not enough, you know it. Your body knows it. That's why it keeps breaking down, why you're exhausted all the time, why you feel like you're drowning, even when your life looks fine from the outside. So let's begin this journey. Not with gentleness, but with truth. Not with comfort, but with consciousness. Not with more spiritual bypassing, but with the raw, uncomfortable, necessary work of reclaiming your fire. You were never meant to be a doormat for the divine to wipe its feet on. You were never meant to be a dumping ground for other people's unprocessed emotions. You were never meant to betray yourself repeatedly to prove your worth. You were meant to be a force of nature. And forces have edges. They have boundaries. They have heat. They have power that cannot be diminished or controlled by others' expectations. It's time to stop apologizing for that power. It's time to reclaim your fire. It's time to remember that rage, when integrated with consciousness, becomes something magnificent. Not destruction, but creation. Not violence, but vitality. Not chaos, but the clearest clarity you've ever known. Before we dive deeper, if this resonates with your soul's journey, please hit that like button and subscribe for more transformational content. Your support helps this message reach other souls who need to hear it. Let's talk about what you've been calling compassion. Let's look directly at the thing you've been avoiding examining too closely. For most of your life, you've believed that your ability to feel others' pain is what makes you good, valuable, worthy of love and belonging. You've worn your sensitivity like both armor and identity proof that you're one of the caring ones, the deep ones, the ones who truly understand. And there's truth in that. Your capacity for empathy is real. But there's also a lie woven so subtly into that truth that you've never thought to question it. The lie is this: you became a healer not from wholeness, but from terror. You became sensitive, not just because you were born that way, but because you learned that careful attunement to others' emotions was how you stayed safe, how you predicted danger, how you survived. Somewhere early in your story, maybe when you were 5, maybe 7, maybe 12, you learned that your anger made people uncomfortable in ways that threatened your security. Perhaps you saw your mother's face crumple into wounded sadness when you raised your voice. Perhaps your father withdrew into stony silence that lasted for days when you expressed frustration. Perhaps you watched a sibling get punished severely for their rage and decided right then, with devastating childhood logic, that you would be different. You would be good. You would be easy. You would be the one who didn't make waves, who smoothed things over, who kept everyone happy at your own expense. So you learned to swallow the fire before it could even fully ignite. You learned to transmute your own pain into service for others before anyone could accuse you of being selfish or difficult. You learned that the way to be loved, perhaps the only way, was to need nothing and give everything without keeping score. And a pattern was born. A pattern that felt like virtue but functioned as self-erasure. A pattern that looked like compassion but was actually a complex defense mechanism against abandonment. This is what depth psychology identifies as participation mystique, that state of unconscious fusion, where you cannot distinguish where you end and another person begins. The boundaries between self and other blur and dissolve until you're not sure whose feelings you're feeling, whose needs you're meeting, whose pain you're processing, whose life you're actually living. The empath trapped in this state doesn't just feel compassion for others. They become others. They absorb emotions like a sponge absorbs water without any protective membrane, without any sense of where their own emotional experience ends and another's begins. And here's what no one tells you about this: it's absolutely exhausting. Not just physically, though, the fatigue is crushing. It's existentially exhausting. Because when you're constantly merged with others' emotional states, you're essentially trying to live multiple lives simultaneously. You're trying to feel your feelings, their feelings, the feelings they won't admit. They're having the feelings they're projecting onto you, and the feelings you think you should be having to make them comfortable. You lost yourself so gradually, you didn't even notice it happening. It wasn't a dramatic disappearing act. It was a slow fade. Every time you said, "I'm fine," when you were drowning internally. Every time you prioritized someone else's minor discomfort over your own major pain. Every time you stayed in a conversation that was draining your life force because leaving felt selfish. Every time you carried someone else's emotional labor because you couldn't bear to watch them struggle, even when they were perfectly capable of handling it themselves. You thought you were being kind. You thought you were being evolved, spiritual, compassionate. But really, you were disappearing. Bit by bit, choice by choice, you were erasing yourself to make room for everyone else. And beneath all that, giving something else was growing in the dark. Something with teeth and claws and a voice that kept getting louder, even as you tried desperately to silence it. Your rage, the accumulated fury of a self that has been ignored, dismissed, betrayed, and abandoned primarily by you, not by others. But because you'd spent so long identifying as the gentle one, the understanding one, the one who never gets angry, you couldn't recognize this growing energy as rage. It didn't fit your carefully constructed self-image. So your psyche disguised it. The rage transformed itself into forms you could accept without shattering your identity. It became fatigue, that bone-deep exhaustion that no amount of sleep can touch. It became chronic pain, the mysterious aches that move around your body that doctors can't quite explain. It became migraines, stomach problems, an immune system that keeps failing. Your body was trying to tell you what your mind refused to hear. You have needs. You have limits. You have a self that is separate, and that self is angry at being ignored. Here's what you need to understand. There are two kinds of healers in this world. There is the wounded healer who has genuinely descended into their own darkness, confronted their shadow, integrated their rage, and emerged with hard-won wisdom. This person has walked through fire and knows the way. And then there is the false healer, the one who fixes others to avoid fixing themselves, the one whose entire identity is built on being needed, the one who is addicted to rescuing, because to stop rescuing would mean confronting the emptiness inside. The false healer mistakes codependency for compassion. They confuse enabling with empathy. They wear themselves down to nothing while calling it love, calling it service. Which one are you? Be honest. When someone comes to you with a problem, do you genuinely want to help them find their own power, or do you need them to need you? When someone heals and no longer requires your support, do you celebrate? Or do you feel a strange sense of loss, as if your purpose just walked away? Let me show you how this pattern forms. Imagine a child, maybe it was you, who learned that her anger made her mother cry. One day, in a moment of natural frustration, she yelled, and her mother's face collapsed into wounded sadness. "How could you speak to me that way?" her mother said, voice trembling. "After everything I do for you." In that moment, something fundamental broke in the child. Not her mother's heart, her own boundaries. She learned that her anger was a weapon that hurt the person she loved most. She learned that to be loved, she had to be endlessly understanding. She learned that her authentic feelings were too much, too dangerous, too destructive. So she created a solution, an internal figure that I call the pleasing child. This figure took over whenever anger arose. It smoothed things over before conflict could develop. It said sorry even when she'd done nothing wrong. It prioritized everyone else's emotional state over her own needs, her own truth. And over time, this didn't feel like a role anymore. It felt like who she fundamentally was. The pleasing child became her identity, her prison, her survival strategy. But here's what you need to understand about these internal figures, these complexes. They're autonomous. They have their own agenda. They're not just habits. They're semi-independent entities within your psyche with their own drives and fears. The pleasing child doesn't want you to set boundaries because boundaries threaten its entire reason for existing. If you stop pleasing, if you start saying no, if you express anger, the pleasing child believes it will be abandoned. So this inner figure sabotages you. It makes you feel crushing guilt when you rest. It keeps you trapped in exhausting patterns because those patterns feel safe, feel familiar. When rage is denied, it doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes guilt that gnaws constantly. It becomes perfectionism that drives you to exhaustion. It becomes depression, that thick fog that descends when the psyche can no longer tolerate carrying what isn't yours. You thought you were being virtuous by suppressing your anger. But you were being complicit in your own diminishment. And no amount of meditation can fix a life built on fundamental self-betrayal. But beneath it all, something ancient is stirring. Something that remembers you had a self before you learned to give it away. That something is your rage. And it's not here to destroy you. It's here to differentiate you, to carve you out from the mass of everyone else's needs and say, this is where you end. This is where you begin. This is the boundary of your soul. Your rage is your selfhood trying to be born. Let's fundamentally reframe something you've believed your entire life. Your anger is not a moral failing. It's not evidence that you're not spiritual enough or evolved enough. Your rage is the immune system of your psyche, and it's finally activating after years of tolerating infections. Think about how your physical body responds to a virus. It doesn't politely negotiate with the invader. It doesn't try to understand the virus's perspective or trauma. It mounts a defense. It creates inflammation, fever, discomfort, all signs that your immune system is protecting your integrity. Your rage functions identically. It arises when something violates your psychological boundaries. It's your soul saying, this is not acceptable. This crosses a fundamental line. This hurts me. This is wrong. Your anger is information about where your boundaries should be, about what you should not tolerate. But you've been taught carefully, systematically, relentlessly to suppress this natural protective response. You've been conditioned to believe that anger is ugly, destructive, unspiritual. Especially if you're a woman. Especially if you're sensitive. Especially if you've built your identity around being understanding. So you've been swallowing the fire for years, maybe decades. And you thought you were getting away with it. You thought you were maintaining peace, being evolved. But the psyche has immutable laws. One is enantiodromia, the principle that when something is pushed to an extreme, it transforms into its opposite. The person who is endlessly nice becomes secretly bitter, resentful. The one who never expresses anger builds rage so vast, it eventually explodes, destroying everything in its path. The empath who lives only in light becomes possessed by shadow in ways they can't control. This is the danger of denying your fire. It will emerge. That's not a threat, it's a statement of psychological fact. The only question is whether you'll meet it consciously or be possessed by it unconsciously. Let me take you deeper into the alchemy of transformation. In the old alchemical texts, there were 3 primary stages described in the great work, the process of turning lead into gold, which was never really about metals, but always about the soul's transformation. The first stage is nigredo, the blackening. This is the descent into darkness, the confrontation with everything you've denied. For the empath awakening to their rage, nigredo arrives as a devastating realization. Your compassion was sometimes cowardice. Your kindness was sometimes fear of conflict. Your endless giving wasn't pure altruism. It was a strategy to avoid abandonment, to control how others perceived you. You didn't help people because you were so evolved. You helped them because you were terrified of being alone, of being seen as selfish, of being abandoned if you stopped performing constant service. This realization is absolutely devastating. It shatters your self-image completely. The person you thought you were, the pure helper, the selfless giver, crumbles into dust. And in the ruins of that false self, you find rage. Rage at all the people who took advantage of your giving. Rage at the systems that taught you your worth was measured by how much you could endure. Rage at yourself for allowing it, for participating in your own exploitation. This is the blackening. And it's supposed to feel terrible. You're supposed to feel disillusioned, angry, even disgusted with yourself. Because only when the false self dies can the authentic self emerge. The second stage is albedo, the whitening, purification. You begin to separate what's yours from what isn't. You begin to distinguish between your emotions and others' emotions. You learn to witness your rage without immediately acting on it or immediately suppressing it. You sit with the fire. You let it burn without either indulging it or extinguishing it. In albedo, you begin to see that beneath the anger is something else, grief. Deep, wrenching grief for all the times you betrayed yourself. Grief for the years you spent dimming your light to make others comfortable. Grief for the version of you that never got to exist because you were too busy existing for everyone else. The rage begins to clarify. It's no longer undifferentiated fury. It becomes specific. You can name what violated you. You can see the patterns clearly. And in that clarity, something begins to shift. The fire starts to transform from destructive to creative energy. The third stage is rubedo, the reddening, integration. The fire doesn't go away. That's not the goal. The goal is transformation. The fire becomes life force, passion, authentic power, the ability to say no without guilt, the capacity to speak difficult truths without apologizing, the courage to disappoint others in service of your own integrity. This is the gold you've been mining for. Not the elimination of anger, but its transformation into something sacred. Here's what most people fundamentally misunderstand about rage. They think it's the opposite of love. But it's not. Rage is unlived life force. It's suppressed vitality. It's denied sovereignty. When you've spent your life saying yes when you meant no, when you've contorted yourself to fit everyone else's expectations, that energy doesn't disappear. It becomes rage. And when you finally allow yourself to feel it, you realize something extraordinary. Your rage is trying to give you back your life. It's trying to give you back your boundaries, your voice, your right to take up space, your permission to have needs. A fire uncontrolled burns the house down, destroys everything indiscriminately. But a fire tended fed the right fuel contained in the right space, honored for its power. That fire warms the home. That fire cooks the food that nourishes. That fire keeps the darkness at bay. Your rage, when integrated, becomes this kind of fire. It becomes the heat that fuels your creativity, that drives your most meaningful work. It becomes the passion that gives your life purpose. It becomes the fierce protectiveness that allows you to guard what's sacred, including yourself. It becomes the clarity that helps you discern who deserves access to your energy and who doesn't. Emotion is the chief source of consciousness. There is no transformation from darkness to light without the friction, the heat of deep feeling. And for the empath who has lived in the false light of perpetual niceness, rage is the fire that burns away pretense and reveals what's real. You're afraid of this fire. You're afraid that if you let yourself feel the full force of your anger, you'll lose control. You'll hurt people. You'll become the villain in your own story. But here's what actually happens. When you integrate rage consciously, you become dangerous to systems of oppression and exploitation, but safe to be around as a person. You become someone who doesn't tolerate disrespect or boundary violations, but also doesn't need to punish others for their humanity. You become clear, boundaried, real, authentic. Let the fire rise, not to destroy others, but to illuminate truth. Not to harm, but to reveal what's been hidden. Not to burn others, but to forge you into something that cannot be diminished, dismissed, or erased. This is the alchemy. From the lead of unconscious repression to the gold of integrated power. From the false peace of suppression to the authentic presence of wholeness. The fire has always been yours. It's been waiting for you to stop running and finally turn to face it. It's time to tend your fire, to feed it consciously, to let it transform you. This is the great work of the Carl Jung empath in personal development, not to eliminate the shadow, but to integrate it. Not to transcend anger, but to transform it. Not to rise above your humanity, but to become fully authentically human. To reclaim the fire, you must make the journey that every mystic, every initiate, every genuine seeker has had to make. You must descend into the underworld of your own psyche. This is not metaphor. This is not poetic language. This is the actual psychological work that consciousness demands. In ancient myths across every culture, this journey appears with remarkable consistency. Inanna, the Sumerian goddess, descends to the underworld and is stripped of everything: her crown, her jewels, her clothes, her very life, before she can be resurrected with new sight. Persephone is taken into the dark realm of Hades and must eat pomegranate seeds that bind her to cycles of death and rebirth. Jonah is swallowed by the whale and spends 3 days in darkness before being vomited onto new shores transformed. These stories are not fairy tales. They are precise psychological maps describing the territory of transformation that every soul must traverse to become whole. For the empath who has lived in denial of their rage, the descent is not optional. It's inevitable. You can delay it through busyness, through more helping, through spiritual bypassing. But eventually, the psyche will demand that you descend. It will demand that you face what you've buried. For most empaths, the descent is triggered by collapse, the moment when your body simply refuses to carry anymore. When you burn out so completely that you physically cannot get out of bed. When a relationship implodes because you finally told the truth. When you have what everyone calls a breakdown, but is actually your soul saying enough. We're done pretending. We're going down into the depths. And what awaits you in that underworld? Not literal demons or monsters, but something that feels even more terrifying: the parts of yourself you've exiled to maintain your acceptable persona, your safe identity. In the depths of your psyche, live what we call autonomous complexes. These are not just different moods or aspects of your personality. They are semi-independent psychic entities formed through trauma and sustained by repression, with their own agendas, their own voices, their own ways of influencing your behavior. They function almost like separate personalities existing within the structure of your singular consciousness. The first figure you'll encounter is what I call the silenced child. This is the part of you that learned very early that anger was dangerous, that expressing displeasure made people leave. She's been locked in the basement of your psyche for decades, and she is not at peace. She is furious. When you finally meet her, you might feel overwhelming grief. You might weep for the little girl who learned that to be loved, she had to be convenient, accommodating, easy. Who learned that her rage made people she loved withdraw their affection. This silenced child carries all the no's you never got to say, all the protests you swallowed, all the anger you turned inward. Meeting her means feeling the full weight of how much you've betrayed yourself. The second figure dwelling in your depths is the martyr. This one is more insidious because she wears her suffering like a crown of thorns, believing it proves her goodness. She's convinced that her exhaustion is evidence of her virtue, that her pain demonstrates her worth. She secretly judges people who set boundaries, who prioritize their own needs, because she spent her life believing that selflessness is the highest form of love. The martyr is terrified of rest, because rest would mean confronting the emptiness beneath all the compulsive doing. She's addicted to being needed, because being needed gives her purpose, gives her a reason to exist. The third figure, and this is the one that truly frightens you, is the silent fury. She's been waiting in the absolute darkness, in the deepest cave of your unconscious, accumulating power, with every boundary you failed to set. Every time you swallowed your truth, she grew stronger. Every time you said yes when you meant no, she took note. She is the keeper of your rage, the guardian of all your unlived anger. And she's done waiting. When you meet the silent fury, you might be terrified by her intensity, by the sheer force of the anger she's been holding. She doesn't want to be reasonable. She doesn't care about being fair or understanding. She wants to burn everything down, every relationship where you made yourself small, every situation where you accepted less than you deserved. This is the dangerous moment when rage threatens to possess you completely, when the pendulum swings so far that you risk becoming what you most feared, someone who hurts others without remorse, who destroys connection carelessly. But understand this, the silent fury isn't trying to destroy your life. She's trying to destroy the lies. She's the necessary demolition before reconstruction. She's the fire that clears the ground so something new can grow. The work of active imagination requires that you sit with these figures as if they were real people. If your rage could speak, what would it say? If your martyr could confess her true motivations, what would she admit? If the silenced child could tell you what she needed, what would she ask for? Eventually, you must face the truth that terrifies you most. What if I'm not actually a good person? What if all my compassion has been manipulation in disguise? A way to control how people see me to guarantee they won't leave. The shadow confession sounds like this. I didn't help you because I loved you. I helped you because I was terrified you'd leave. I gave endlessly not from fullness, but from desperate emptiness. I made myself indispensable because I was convinced my authentic self wasn't enough. This confession shatters your carefully constructed self-image. And in that shattering, there is profound grief. Deep grief for all the years you spent performing a role. Grief for the real you that never got to emerge. But here's the revelation that makes this descent worth every moment of agony. The rage isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to differentiate you. It's trying to carve you out from the mass of everyone else's needs. The psyche is screaming, you are not them. You have edges, you have limits, you have a self. And that self has been waiting for permission to exist. Your rage is your selfhood trying to be born after decades of being stillborn. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The descent into the underworld isn't optional for those seeking genuine wholeness. The fire is calling you deeper. The underworld is waiting. Your rage is ready to speak. Will you finally listen? If you've walked this far, you've done something that most people cannot or will not do. You've descended into your own darkness and survived. You've met the figures in your shadow. You've felt the rage, touched the grief, faced the bitter truth of how profoundly you've betrayed yourself. And now you're standing in the aftermath, wondering, what next? How do I live now? This is where most people make a critical mistake. They think the work is about choosing between compassion and boundaries, between softness and strength, between their empathic nature and their newly discovered rage. They think they have to pick a side. But the deepest wisdom of depth psychology teaches us something radically different. The goal is not to choose between opposites. The goal is to hold the tension between them until something entirely new is born from that creative friction. This is the transcendent function, the psyche's extraordinary capacity to create a third position from two warring opposites. It's the alchemical process that transforms contradiction into paradox, either or into both, and fragmentation into wholeness. For the Carl Jung empath, this is the crucial turning point in personal development. You've spent your life fused with others, unable to distinguish where you end and they begin. Then you descended into rage and discovered the opposite separation boundaries, fierce sovereignty. But now comes real mastery, learning to be both compassionate and boundaried simultaneously. Both soft and fierce. both deeply feeling and unshakably sovereign. This is not easy work. Every part of you wants to collapse back into one extreme because tension is uncomfortable. The old pleasing child still whispers that boundaries mean you're selfish. The silent fury still wants to burn everything down and trust no one. The pendulum wants to swing, not balance. But the transcendent function asks you to stay in the middle, in that uncomfortable creative tension where opposites coexist without canceling each other out. Where you can feel someone's pain deeply without absorbing it as your own. Where you can love someone and still say no to their requests. Where you can be vulnerable without being victimized. This is differentiation, the psychological capacity to remain yourself in the presence of others. To feel deeply without fusing completely. To maintain your own center while empathizing with someone else's experience. To recognize with crystal clarity where you end and another person begins, and to protect that boundary as sacred. Before awakening, the unaware empath doesn't just sense others' emotions, they become those emotions through unconscious merger. Someone walks into the room anxious, and suddenly you're anxious without knowing why. Your friend is grieving, and you're drowning in sorrow that has nothing to do with your life. This is participation, mystique, unconscious fusion where boundaries dissolve. But differentiation breaks that spell. It says, I see your pain. I witness it. I do not abandon you in it. But I am not you. Your emotions are yours. Mine are mine. I will not carry what belongs to you. Read that again. This is the mantra of the awakened empath. I see your pain. I do not abandon you. But I am not you. This is not coldness. This is not lack of compassion. This is clarity. This is the difference between genuine compassion and codependency, between empathy and enmeshment, between being a healing presence and being an emotional sponge. The mature empath learns to witness without merging, to hold space for someone's experience without losing themselves in that space, to care deeply while remaining rooted in their own center, anchored in their own body. This is sovereignty, self-governance, without guilt. Think of it this way. A boundary is not a wall. There's a crucial distinction. A wall says, I don't care about you. I'm closed. You can't reach me. A wall is built from fear. But a boundary says something entirely different. A boundary says, I care about you, and I also care about myself. Both are true. Both matter. A boundary is built from love, that includes the self. Boundaries are sacred containers for your energy, for your fire. They're the structure that allows your power to be directed rather than dispersed, focused rather than scattered. When you have clear boundaries, you don't have to shut down emotionally. You can remain fully open, fully feeling because you know where you end and the other begins. This is the death of the martyr and the birth of the oracle. The martyr says, I'll die for you. I'll sacrifice myself. My pain proves my love. The martyr needs to suffer to feel valuable, but the oracle says something profoundly different. I see you. I see your struggle. I trust you to carry your own burden, because carrying it is how you'll grow strong. I will be here present, but not possessed, caring, but not consumed. The oracle doesn't rescue because the oracle understands that rescuing keeps people dependent. Witnessing when done with full presence is more powerful than any rescue attempt. Because witnessing invites the other person into their own power. This is where your rage, when finally integrated, becomes something extraordinary. It's no longer reactive explosion. It's conscious fire. The steady capacity to say no without apologizing. The ability to speak difficult truths without softening them into meaninglessness. The courage to disappoint others in service of your own integrity. The fire integrated looks like this. You're in a conversation that's draining you. The old you would have stayed absorbed every word while dying inside. the reactive you would have snapped and walked away in anger, but the integrated you interrupts gently but firmly. I need to stop here. This conversation isn't serving either of us. And then you leave, not in anger, not in guilt, just in simple truth. That's channeled fire. That's rage transformed into clarity. Where love reigns, there is no will to power. Where the will to power is paramount, love is lacking. The empath's journey is learning to embody both the love that connects and the power that protects. Not love at the expense of power, which becomes martyrdom. Not power at the expense of love, which becomes cruelty. But love and power together, integrated. This integration requires practice. You will slip backward. You will fall into old patterns. You will give too much, then overcorrect by giving nothing. You will oscillate between extremes before you learn to rest in the center. But gradually something begins to shift. You notice you can be in someone's presence without taking on their emotional state. You realize you can care about someone's struggle without feeling responsible for solving it. You discover that saying no doesn't end relationships, it clarifies them. The people who can't handle your boundaries weren't actually in relationship with you. They were in relationship with your compliance, with your endless availability, and the people who remain. Those relationships deepen profoundly, because now you're bringing your full self, tender and fierce, compassionate and boundaried, soft and unyielding, feeling and sovereign. This is wholeness, not perfection, but integration, the capacity to hold opposites without fragmenting. In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. Your life, which felt so fragmented, begins to cohere around a center that is genuinely you. The fire you denied becomes the light you carry. The rage you feared becomes the power you embody. The sensitivity you thought was weakness becomes the gift you offer from sovereignty rather than depletion. You are not less empathic now. You're more whole. You feel everything still, but you're not drowning. You care deeply still, but you're not destroyed by caring. You've learned the secret true compassion doesn't rescue. It trusts. It says, I see you struggling, and I trust you have what it takes to find your way. You don't return from the underworld unchanged. The fire burned too much away. You tried to save your old self, but the flames consumed all of it. And in the ashes, something else is rising. This is the phoenix archetype, the being who burns illusions and emerges luminous. What dies? Everything false. Every people-pleasing pattern. Every performance of niceness hiding resentment. Every time you said, I'm fine, when you were drowning. Every relationship where you made yourself small. Every obligation you carried from guilt rather than desire. All of it burned away. And what rises? Your authentic presence, your sovereign compassion, your embodied truth, the version of yourself that no longer needs permission to exist fully. This is sovereignty, not dominance, not control. Sovereignty means self-governance without guilt. You no longer ask if it's okay for you to have needs, boundaries, preferences. You simply honor them. The awakened empath stops performing the role of eternal helper. They stop auditioning for the part of the understanding one, because they've realized that role was never them. It was armor, protection against abandonment. Now, without that armor, you might feel vulnerable. You're no longer hiding behind service. You're just you, raw, real, complex, sometimes tender, sometimes fierce, moody, human, whole. And here's what's extraordinary. This is when you actually become medicine, not the false medicine of constant availability, but the real medicine of presence. Presence that doesn't try to fix or save. Presence that simply sees. The awakened empath's power is not in what they do, but in how they are. Their very being becomes catalytic. People feel it. The one who has integrated shadow radiates coherence. It's not artificial calm. It's deep settledness. This coherence affects others without effort. You stopped trying to save people, and they could breathe around you. You stopped absorbing their pain, and they started processing it themselves. You stopped having all the answers, and they found their own. This is the paradox. When you release the compulsion to heal, you become genuinely healing. When you stop trying to fix everyone, transformation happens in your presence. Why? Because people sense whether you need them to be different. The false healer needs people to stay broken, but the awakened empath needs nothing from others. So when someone shows up, they can finally relax. This is witnessing in its truest form, seeing fully without judgment, without agenda, without the need to change what is. And when someone feels truly seen, something unlocks. The sacred work is naming what hasn't been named, feeling what hasn't been felt, speaking silenced truth. The awakened empath becomes a translator for the collective. They feel what's buried and give it language. But this requires living the fire. What does that look like? It looks like speaking uncomfortable truths, even when your voice shakes. Saying no without justification. Disappointing people without drowning in guilt. Protecting your energy as fiercely as you once protected others' feelings. Creating boundaries that feel radical. The fire becomes your creativity, your activism, your fierce love, your protection of the vulnerable, including yourself. And yes, it becomes your capacity for anger without apology. When someone crosses a boundary, you simply state, "This is not acceptable." When you witness injustice, you let outrage fuel action. When someone tries to manipulate through guilt, you recognize it and walk away. This makes you dangerous to systems relying on your compliance. This threatens people who benefited from your endless accommodation. And that's the point. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. For the empath, this often means becoming less likable and more real. Some people will prefer the old version. Those people will call your boundaries selfish. They'll say you've changed negatively. And they're right. You're not your old self. You've burned that false self to ash. And what's rising doesn't need their approval. This is individuation, becoming a unique individual rather than a collective function. And it requires disappointing people. Being misunderstood. Being judged. The empath who chooses wholeness over approval will lose people. Friends who wanted you as their unpaid therapist will drift away. Family who relied on you to manage their emotions will be confused. Partners who never considered your needs will feel threatened. Let them go, not with bitterness, but with clarity. These relationships were based on your depletion. They can't survive your awakening because they weren't relationships, they were roles. And in the space they leave, something else emerges. Relationships based on mutual respect. Connections where both people bring wholeness. Love that doesn't require you to diminish yourself. You will find yourself. And that discovery is worth any approval you lose. The phoenix doesn't rise to please anyone. It rises because its nature is transformation. You are becoming this. A being who no longer lives from the outside in, but from the inside out. Rooted in your own truth, your own fire, your own unapologetic existence. Welcome to the revolution. It won't be comfortable. It won't make you popular. But it will make you whole. And wholeness is worth any cost. Here we stand, at the end and the beginning. You've journeyed through shadow, descended into your underworld, met the rage you'd been denying, integrated the fire you'd been taught to fear. And now you stand at a threshold. Behind you, the old way. The exhausting performance of endless niceness. the martyrdom disguised as compassion, the slow self-erasure you called empathy. You know that path. It's familiar and soul-destroying. Before you, the unknown, the life where you stop carrying what isn't yours, where you speak truth even when your voice trembles, where you protect your energy as fiercely as you once protected everyone else's comfort, where you live from your fire instead of dampening it. The world doesn't need your silence. The world doesn't need you quiet, accommodating, endlessly available. The world needs your truth, your fierce boundaries, your integrated fire, your refusal to participate in your own diminishment. They want you quiet because your fire illuminates what they've been hiding. When you stop pretending everything is fine, when you start naming what's wrong, when you refuse to absorb the collective dysfunction, you become dangerous. Not violent, but dangerous to systems built on unconsciousness. Your awakening threatens the unspoken agreements, the contract that says empaths will absorb everyone's pain, that sensitive people will carry the shadow, that some humans will process the collective trauma while others deny it exists. When you break that contract, when you say, "This is not mine to carry," the whole structure trembles. Because if you stop being the receptacle, they'll have to face themselves. And most people would rather resent you than do their own work. Let them. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. The empath revolution is not loud. It's seismic but quiet. It happens when you choose yourself without apology, when you leave a draining conversation without explaining, when you turn down an invitation simply because you don't want to go, when you feel someone's pain and instead of absorbing it, you say, "I see this is hard for you," and let them carry it. Revolution happens when you stop sacrificing your life to prove you're good, when you realize your tenderness and your fury are both sacred, that your softness and your boundaries can coexist. This is what the culture won't tell you. Your fire is not an accident. Your sensitivity was never meant to be weaponized against you. You were not born broken. You were born permeable for a reason. You were meant to feel the collective currents, but as a messenger, not a martyr. The profound work of the Carl Jung empath in personal development is not to become less sensitive. It's to become more sovereign, not to feel less, but to carry sensitivity with wisdom, not to close your heart, but to protect it with boundaries made of sacred fire. Your fire is not a mistake. Your rage at how much you've betrayed yourself, your fury at the systems that taught you to disappear, this is not darkness. This is your soul demanding you remember who you are. You are not here to carry the world's pain. You are here to transform it by transforming yourself first, by refusing to be the repository for what others won't feel, by modeling what it looks like to be both tender and unmovable. Stop asking if you're too much. Start asking if you are aligned. Stop trying to be understood by people who need you confused. Start speaking your truth. Stop apologizing for taking up space. Start claiming your right to exist fully. The world doesn't need another healer. It needs you whole, fierce, and free. It needs you living from your fire. It needs you setting boundaries that illuminate where others have been crossing lines. It needs you refusing to participate in your own erasure. This is the call, not to comfort, but to truth, not to perform, but to embody, not to save everyone, but to be fully yourself. And here's the sacred promise: the fire you've been denying is not here to destroy you. It's been waiting to forge you into something that cannot be diminished, dismissed, or erased. That fire has been building your whole life. Every time you swallowed your truth, every time you said yes when you meant no, every betrayal of self added fuel. And now the fire is ready. Will you tend this fire, or let it burn you from the inside? Will you channel it, or will it consume you? Will you integrate your rage, or keep suppressing it until it explodes? Your tenderness and your fury are both sacred, both necessary. Both you, the empath who denies rage, becomes depleted, bitter, sick. But the empath who integrates fire becomes whole, powerful, alive. This is not comfortable. Living from your truth means disappointing people who preferred your performance. Setting boundaries means losing relationships built on your depletion. Speaking authentically means being misunderstood by those who need you small. But consider the alternative, continuing to live half alive. Continuing to dim yourself so others feel brighter. Continuing to carry what isn't yours until your body breaks. Continuing to betray yourself to keep a peace that isn't real. You deserve better. Your soul deserves better. Your life deserves better. So here at this threshold, I ask you, are you ready to stop healing what doesn't want to be healed and begin awakening what's ready to remember? Are you ready to lay down the martyr's robe and rise as the sovereign being you've always been? Are you ready to stop performing compassion and start living from wholeness? Then breathe. Feel the fire rising in your chest. Let it. Don't push it down. Don't judge it. Feel it fully. Let it burn away everything that isn't true. Let it forge you into someone who cannot be manipulated through guilt, controlled through fear, or diminished through expectation. The fire knows what it's doing. Trust it. Tend it. Let it illuminate your path. Let it warm those ready for real connection and drive away those who only wanted to use your light. You were not born to carry the world's pain. You were born to transform it by refusing to keep it buried, by naming what others deny, by feeling fully and living truthfully. Welcome home to your rage. Welcome home to your power. Welcome home to yourself. The fire has always been yours. The fire has always been you. Stop denying it. Stop dimming it. Stop apologizing for it. Let it rise. Let it roar. Let it forge you into the fierce, tender, boundaried whole being you were always meant to become. This is the sacred rage of the empath. This is the fire you've been denying. And this is your invitation to finally claim it. The world is waiting, not for your service, for your truth, not for your endless giving, for your wholeness, not for your dimmed light, for your full fire. Stop waiting for permission. You don't need it. You never did. The only permission you need is the one you give yourself: permission to be whole, permission to have needs, permission to say no, permission to burn away everything false, permission to rise from your own ashes. You are not too much. You are precisely what this world needs. It needs your trembling truth. It needs your sacred boundaries. It needs your integrated fire, not weaponized against yourself. As a beacon, as a reminder, as living proof that it's possible to feel everything and still be free. So go. Live from your fire. Speak from your truth. Love from your wholeness. And watch how the world transforms when you stop betraying yourself to fit into it. The revolution begins with one empath deciding they're done performing and ready to live. Let it be you. Let it be now. Let it be real. The fire is calling. Answer it.